it's me, Dennis. I was in Los Angeles in 1979 and began my talk show, Reasonably Spontaneous Conversation, on public access TV. One of my guests was Pam Dixon, the Executive Vice President for Casting at ABC TV, the #1 network at the time. Pam had risen from being a secretary to senior vice president in just 4 years. Here is that interview.
It's interesting because I like being friends with men better than women, so that's interesting.
Yeah, why?
I think mainly because for me they're easier to relate to in many ways.
This is Pam Dixon, who is Senior Vice President of Talent at ABC, and who is, by the way, going to be having a whole bunch of wonderful things happening to her that because of the air date we cannot tell yet. Not that I know, but I like to we it a little. Pam, how interesting that that a Senior Vice President of Talent at ABC has always been recognized for her talent. I mean, you start out as a file clerk at CBS in the accounting department, and 6 months later you've gotten 3 promotions. You know, so apparently someone goes, oh, this person's talented. Doom, doom, doom. They march up. Then in 1971 you go with Jack Lemmon's production. Look at all this information that's coming back. Wonderful. You go with Jack Lemmon's production company and you do a bunch of stuff over there. And then you were secretary to the head of talent at ABC.
CBS.
At CBS.
Right.
So you were a secretary. I mean, in a secretary terms, right?
Absolutely, in all of the terms.
Exactly. And you made the transition from secretary to executive, and you are a senior executive now with the American Broadcasting Company with more exciting things to come. What was that mental trip to make the transition from secretary to executive level?
Well, there really wasn't one because I never had time to really think about it. When I started as a secretary, I really never anticipated that I was going to become, maybe 4 years later, either an executive or a senior vice president.
Where was your head? What were you thinking?
I just took the job because my husband at the time wanted to go to law school, and I thought, well, I have to do something to earn money for a year. And a secretary, interestingly enough, paid better than a social worker in Los Angeles. And it sounded a little interesting because it was at CBS television. And so I did it, and I really never had time to think about it because I wasn't at that point at all interested in working. I was interested in quitting a year later, raising a family, and staying home with my husband.
What happened?
I changed my mind. What happened is I learned that I liked working.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that it was interesting to be able to come home and have something to discuss with my husband other than, gee, what did you do today, and have to live my entire life really through his work. And I really just never thought about it, and as times kept changing, it was really interesting, kind of hard to cope with it because I wasn't really thinking about it, and just kind of all happened, and it happened fast.
Yes.
Which I think is hard.
Have you dealt with it? I mean,
had a good time. I think if you maintain your sense of humor and you don't take it all too seriously, then you can really, you can have a good time. And I don't think my philosophy in terms of how I feel about things has changed very much.
So you brought that with you?
Yeah, and I try to maintain it. I try to maintain it by, continuing to do all the things with my husband that I always like to do, and I don't go to parties all the time, and I don't have all my relationships, with the people I work. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I have a lot of friends who have nothing to do with television or motion pictures, and I still maintain those relationships. And I think that helps. I think it helps a lot, and you don't get, I don't know, what is the word, maybe jaded by it all or impressed by it all. Because it's not really that impressive. The thing that's fun is that as you get to move along, especially in my area, you get to help all of the actors that you've liked even more because you have more things to work on and more things to do. And therefore just more avenues to get people work. And that's what's fun about it.
How delightful. So you haven't how have you avoided the traps? I mean, there are many traps. There's the traps of security. I mean, there must be some reason why the networks are considered to be this black dungeon hole that eats executives, you know, and turns them into all this, you know, and people eye them with suspicion and have these horror stories about what happens. And so there must be, I mean, these are human beings, so there must be some types of traps in there that you've been able to avoid. I see you as a whole human being. You don't wear horns here or, you know.
Well, I think, one, my area in the network, which is talent, is probably the least maybe of the areas that people can kind of always jump on. I'm always kind of in the middle because I'm always between the producers.
A facilitator.
Yeah, I'm between the producers, I'm between the network people and the actors.
Yeah.
But the thing that it does allow me to do really is I work mainly with the producers. So most of the producers don't look at me and say, oh boy, she's just really terrible, or she just wants to say no to us. My job is really to help. My job is to
assist.
To assist, to suggest, and I don't know, there's a feeling there's always, one person isn't always the best, and if you can have more than one person, you can just do it better. And I have a terrific department of people that work with me. And we really assist the producers. It's our job to do that, not really to come back and say, hey, we're the network and we don't want to do what you want to do, therefore we're going to get to do what we want to do.
So will with this new place that you're going, be more responsibility?
More responsibility, and also in different areas. Which
That's what I mean. So how are you going to be able to maintain? All right, I can see how you have maintained it. Maintained who you are. Will you still be able to bring this with the new problems and the new challenges that you will have?
Sure. Still have
All right.
the same people around.
Well, you're
me.
not letting it. You're not letting it overly. You're not letting Pam Dixon overly impress Pam Dixon.
Well, because I think I have a good attitude about it. I think the nice thing is because I am still young, I don't really look at any of the things that I'm doing as the things I'm going to be doing the rest of my life. So I'm just passing through this stage as I pass through being a secretary, and I'll continue to move on to other things, that I can look at everything with really, I hope, a good look at it.
So as long as, am I hearing you right? You will always be passing through?
I hope so. I guess.
How exciting! Damn, how
I
exciting!
I hope so. I mean, it's just like in Gail Shee's book, Passages. I mean, you're just continually passing through things, and hopefully I'll be able to do that.
How have you kept your open mind? Where does that come from? To read and listen and think?
Probably comes from my background of growing up and never being locked into things, and like you mentioned a little while ago, security. I mean, that to me is probably the least of the important things to me. I think the most important thing to me in a job is really to just have a great time, to work with people I like. Now, when I'm 45, I may think security is a little more important. I don't know.
Well, I use security in the broadest, my words are broad. And I use security in the broadest possible terms, ego security, you know, and, you know, when I say security is something that we can latch onto, this human trip, you know, that we're all on, something to hold on to, and that's what I mean by security. And you seem to carry yours around with you. It's an internal thing. I mean, you are paid for your taste.
Yeah, isn't it terrific? That you can have taste and someone pays you for it, yes.
I mean, that's you are, it's like an interior designer or whatever, but you're designing television. You're able to bring these people together. You're 31 years old.
Correct.
That's a lot of things that are happening to a young 31-year-old. How do people, have you found as you have gone into the executive levels from a secretary, have people treated you differently?
Yes. Some people have treated me nicer, and other people haven't treated me as nice as before. So I've gotten a little bit of both. The thing I guess that it's able to do is that it tells you a lot about people, because when you are secretary, you do remember all of the people that kind of wander into your office on their way to see your boss.
Yeah.
And how they treat you. And a lot of them, you know, some of them didn't treat you so nicely. And then the moment you move up the executive ladder, they treat you real nicely, which I don't think you really want to know those people, because hopefully everybody's treated nicely all of the time, and it really doesn't matter whether you're a secretary or an executive. But that does happen. There's no question about that.
How do you know? All right, I'm going to assume I know the answer to this question, so I'm going to answer it for you. I assume that, how arrogant, I assume that you know when people are treating you a certain way because you're an executive. instead of treating Pam Dixon as a human being? I mean, as you meet new people, like, here you are, you're Senior Vice President of Talent on the way up. You're an important person for me to know. So if I can know you, so how do you know I wouldn't treat you differently if I didn't know, if I had no idea who you are? I mean, how can you ascertain this?
Well, I don't think there's any way of really knowing that, because most of my job is really interviewing people. That's what I do all day long.
Okay, you interview people.
That I have a perception of the person. I have a feeling about the person. Something intuitive about the person. And that really extends not only to the people that are actors who I interview, but it also extends to the people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I don't think there's any way of really knowing what somebody is really like, but you do get an indication.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're proven wrong, you
Yeah?
know? Sometimes
How
you're proven
often?
wrong. How often you're proven wrong? Or I'm proven
Yeah.
wrong? I don't know, not very often.
How do you
tend
take a
to
mistake?
have
When you have made a blunder, I assume you make them, right?
sure, we all make them.
All right, but Pam Dixon makes a mistake. How do you take that? How do you
I take
deal
it
with
as a lesson, really. Usually when I make a mistake, I'm able to look at it. I see what I've done wrong, or what kind of jarred me for a moment, or where my instinct was a little mixed up. And I look at it, and I say, okay, I'm not going to do that again, you know? Or if I do it again, I know a little bit more about the situation, you know?
You're not afraid to
But
make.
it's fun to make a mistake. I don't like when I go for a long period of time without making mistakes, because then I kind of sit back and say, gee, I really know this job real well and nothing's happened. You know, the fun about any job is really the challenge of being able to say, gee, I'm putting myself up there, and, you know, gee, I may make mistakes and people are going to have to look at it, and that's just the way it is. The chance is what's the fun of it.
And it's going to cost money when you make a mistake.
Sometimes, you know.
Well, that's just an
Yeah.
extra ante to
Yeah.
it, just an extra little part. Where have you gotten this view of people? I mean, you seem to know people.
I think
know a
I
lot
grew
about
up with
people.
it. I think I grew up with it. I grew up around a lot of children, and I grew up in a very nice, neighborhood where there were lots of kids. And I always was fascinated by people. When I was growing up, I wasn't real fascinated with television. I was more fascinated with people, and I would rather go out with my friends and have a game of volleyball than sit home and watch 3 hours of television. In fact, I watched very little television. So I've always been fascinated by people, and when I went to school I studied sociology because I was always fascinated by people, and this is just an extension of it.
Television's no more
always
than
liked
people. It's the interaction of people, whether it's through a comedy or variety or whatever, but it's people interacting.
Absolutely.
So it is. If you study, those 3 hours that you took studying your friends and watching them and interacting with them was an incredibly valuable as finding out as studying television would be. I mean,
Sure,
it's the same thing.
both are valuable, and both are the same thing. It's just a different way because you're a little closer.
Perception.
Yeah, you're a little closer to the situation. There's not as much fantasy, connected with it, maybe.
What do you want to bring to television? I mean, I'm sitting here talking to Danny Arnold, and the things that he tells me about being able to, there are certain things that could, because television is so powerful, such a powerful sociological medium, possibly the most powerful in history that has ever been devised by man, to reach an incredible amount of people instantaneously. What are you going to bring to this medium?
I'd like to bring something that I think that's never been shown before. That's what I'd like to bring.
Tell me.
Something unique.
Sure.
If I could tell you, I could probably package it and sell it to a lot of people. But I think the thing that would be the most challenging.
You are unique, right? So you are bringing yourself to television. That's number one.
Yes, but I think that indeed is true. But at the same point, I think the concepts that are on television sometimes tend to follow each other. In other words, there are not as many new concepts and as many chances taken on television because of ratings and because of certain needs that one should really be able to do. The nice thing is that I'm with ABC Television, which is number one, and as a result of being number one, we're going to be able in the future to take chances, do things not based on ratings, and we'll do some things really well and we'll do some things that don't go over so well. And that's really the way it should be. It shouldn't be always aimed towards getting a rating and aimed towards perfection. But the thing that would be fun is to see things on television that we just haven't seen before.
This is a network executive, folks, saying this. This is
right.
wonderful.
I
It's
believe that.
It feels good to hear that because you've been given the power.
Yes, and the nice thing now that, you know, ABC is doing well, there's also the money to now begin to do this, because it's not so much just having the power, you have to have the money behind you in order to be able to do this.
Yeah, but CBS and NBC are making tremendous hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
They are, but they're not always placing their dollars in the most interesting places.
I understand that, but it's not like, you know, only ABC is making money. People are making money. This is a very lucrative. Sometimes there is so much money to be made, perhaps, question mark. There is so much money to be made that you don't want to take chances because it would just be too expensive. Was that clear?
Yeah, I understand kind of what you're saying. The thing that I feel, though, is I feel that all of the networks really should be taking chances. The problem is they're not, because they're so...
Why? Why aren't they?
Well, because CBS and NBC, especially NBC at the moment, is striving so hard to move up.
Yeah.
And they're putting all of their dollars into really the prime time, you know, programming,
right.
into the pilots, and, you know, 50 pilots this season and maybe 100 next season, and maybe 2 of which will be bought. When you
pilot school.
Yes, but when you're able to not do that, and you're a little more protected than that, then you can take the money that you would spend doing those 50 pilots, and you can experiment with some of the money, and that's where the fun begins, and that's where you know, you can maybe really try to do something. ABC was the first network really to do movies for television, which at that point was an experiment. It wasn't done as a ratings gather, it was done as an experiment. The same is true of the miniseries. ABC has been the first in many avenues of interesting television. I mean, the miniseries has really, even though some of the other networks unfortunately have, you know, gone to a form of miniseries, it was never meant to be a form. It was meant to be so many hours of specialized television once in a while. And the other 2 networks copying that format, unfortunately, have taken away the specialness of what the miniseries is today. And we just need to go a step further, a step beyond the miniseries. And we don't know exactly what it is, but this year, and I'll be somewhat involved in it, we're going to try our hardest to really do something that you may look at ABC and say, gee, I didn't like it. But boy, I've never seen anything like it. Or, you know, I liked it and it was terrific.
I'm honored to hear you say that.
So we'd like to do that.
Because that's it. I mean, that is where, if television begins taking that type of chance, then we're going to see things that we've never even imagined before. I mean,
See, we're able to see it in movies to some extent.
Yes.
I mean, you can go and you can see a Star Wars, which in terms of being unique, it's unique because you haven't seen anything recently that's in space like that. Or you can go see Alien, which is, you know, scary and brings back kind of a feeling of old movies. We should be able to create that kind of fun in television where people are walking around saying, gee, have you seen this? Have you heard about? And we really need to do that. We did that with Roots, and we haven't done it with, you know, a lot of other things. Mork and Mindy maybe did it a little bit because it was different in terms of a series, but we want to go beyond like the series concept or the miniseries.
Yeah, but it's also different in terms of Robin Williams, who may be one of the incredible talents of our time. I mean,
that
his perception. I mean, that is he touches places within people that is delight and childlike, and I mean, I love to watch people watch Robin Williams, because and I am sure do the same thing, drop completely whatever my act is, and just am charmed.
Have you ever interviewed Robin?
No. I will, Pam, but I cannot get through his people. Because his people say, no, his career is very careful, his career is this, his career is that, and his career is this. But I will touch, if I ever touch the place within him where he sees what we're trying to do, I have a feeling that he will talk with me. And I think we'll have a delightful time as I'm having with you. Because you were able to bring people like Robin Williams and Henry Winkler to ABC. And where do you get the time in order to be able to perceive these people, to be able to see what kind of talent is out there? How do you know that there are not 8 more Robin Williams right here in LA in the different clubs and the different places, and or in someone's living room? How are you doing your job effectively?
Really do my job effectively by seeing everything that I possibly can see, and by meeting as many people as I'm able to meet. And as I said before, there's more than one person at ABC looking at people other than myself. And between all of us, we really try to cover everything, and some I will personally cover, others are covered by other people, but we try to see as much as we can, not only in Los Angeles, but also in New York. And then there's that great kind of line where you kind of hear about somebody and you check it out.
How great, and that's wonderful.
We try to do that.
Do you have, but are you able to trust the intuition of your friends? Intuition, great. Tell me about your intuition.
What do you want to know about it?
I want to know because you rely on it a lot. What is intuition? Give me what intuition is to you.
I think it's just having a feeling about something. I mean, it could be good or bad.
It's something beyond the rational mind.
Yeah, and I don't think it's something you really think about. I think it's like when someone walks into a room and you say, gee, I don't like that person, you haven't even said hello.
Yeah.
I mean, what makes you say that? I don't know, you know. And nobody really knows what makes them say that. It's just something. And the funny thing is, those feelings usually are right. I mean, as time goes on, if you meet that person, you get to see what they're about. You usually continue to feel that way. And I don't understand it, but it works. And I really have never found anyone by, you know, doing a series of readings and then a series of tests. I've really, all the people that I have really liked or found and used have really been based on walking into a room and I say, gee, that person just really is special. There's something happening there. And that's really been my best means of judgment. When I start analyzing it and going through readings and testings, it doesn't seem to ever work right because I overanalyze it. And you can't judge actors that way. You really can't.
Yeah, you can't. It's hard.
Or people.
Yeah,
you know, anybody.
or people.
Yeah.
And but the corollary is true when you have those good feelings about someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you have good feelings, usually, I mean, Henry Winkler, for example, he walked into my office when I was the casting director on Mary Tyler Moore.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have a part for him, but I thought he was so terrific. I called my producer up and said, there's a 3-line part. We've already cast it.
I remember that show.
But this guy is great.
It's great.
I'm going to send him over and we'll pay off the other person because he's really something. We really should use him. And the producer thought I was crazy. He said, what are you, nuts?
Yeah.
I mean, we've already paid the money. You know, I don't want to have to, you know, hire someone else. And anyway, he met him and he liked him. And it was a result of him doing that show, really, that the director of Happy Days saw him. He happened to be in our audience the night we were taping. And it's something like that. And I don't know what made me do that. I don't know what made me call the producer and say, gee, you've got to hire this guy.
Do you take the credit for it? Pam Dixon's ego take the credit for it?
No, I never like to take credit for like finding actors per se. I think the thing that happens is that that I've been able to give someone a chance. And the person that really found Henry Winkler was Henry Winkler. I mean, he got up there and he did in that 3-line part, he did something real special.
That's wonderful.
No, but it's true. I mean, someone else could have been there and they wouldn't have done what he did. And by him doing that well, he made me look great. And that's really what happens. You don't really find anybody. I mean, everyone finds themselves.
And you found yourself?
To a degree at this point, sure. I mean, I don't know if I've totally found myself. Hopefully there are things I don't even know about. But at least I know some of the things.
What is your great dream?
To be happy, I think. To be happy in my terms of being happy.
It seems like you're doing that now. It could be a very, just like you said, a passage, a transition, a continual transition from one to another. And you seem very secure within yourself as to who you are.
I think so. I think so.
And now that seems to free you to do whatever it is that you might do while you're here.
Yeah, I think that. I also think that I'm very lucky because I have a terrific husband who's, you know, very supportive and also, you know...
What is your relationship like? Who is he? What's his name?
My husband's name is Morton, and
Morton.
He is a theatrical packaging agent.
No, but who is he as a human being?
As a human being. I thought you meant as a job. As a human being, he's warm, he's bright, he's real good about knowing how I feel a lot of the times without even having to say anything to me. And I think
you talk.
Oh, we talk a lot. In fact, he's really, I think he's like my best friend. He is my best friend.
Okay.
And I think that's what makes it work so well, because we can do almost anything together and we're always having, you know, a good time. And even when we argue, it's okay too. But if I feel badly about something, I don't have to go somewhere else to talk about it. And that's very important because my time is real limited because I'm at work a lot of the day. And I love to be able to come home when I have a problem and talk to the person that I'm with, as opposed to, you know, having to pick up the phone and call somebody else. And that makes it real nice.
It does. It makes it real nice. I was going to ask you, Have you had a difficult time being taken seriously? Because you're a very attractive woman, and you are, you know, and sometimes women, and especially attractive women, have a difficult time being taken seriously, as far as their intellectual. From that intellectual, I mean, I could see if you were in a suit and a male and this sort of stuff, and expounding upon the same things, people would be very riveted by it. But you happen to be coming in a female package. So within this package, if you have a difficult time being taken seriously.
Yeah, sometimes I have a real difficult time being taken seriously because they look at me and they say, what does she know? What does she know? What is she gonna do? You know? I mean, that's really her? Oh, you know, very strange. But I think what happens is, I have to, unfortunately, as a result of that, you have to sometimes take a really strong position on what you feel about something so that someone does take you seriously. You can't always be as nice as you'd like to be, which kind of, you know, aggravates me to an extent. I mean, I'd like to always be nice.
I hope the camera caught that look. I hope it was on there, because that was an incredible, if we could top a still frame of it, you know, and it was just, you did something with this eye that was just very intimidating. Okay, go on.
But that's really what I think, you know, makes me a little angry, is that I want people to take me seriously, and that looks really has nothing to do with, you know, whether someone is good or, you know,
or your femaleness or whatever.
No, I don't think so at all. But it does, you know, once in a while, especially I think on dealings with new people. I think anyone that's worked with me before, that doesn't happen with, because they've had an opportunity to work with me. When they first walk into my office, they get a little intimidated. They look at me and they say, I have to listen to her? You know? So.
But you're gentle, you seem to be gentle with them.
I try to be, but there are points where I have to get a little tough,
a bit tough.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just so that they really listen to me.
Well, you have been in a leadership position at times during your life. What do you bring to leadership?
I guess the ability to show people what to do and how to follow. I think that's a main part of leadership. I think the ability to share what you know so that they will learn how to do it. I think that's probably the most important thing, is to be able to let your own ego down and allow someone that's with you to really have the ability, so one day hopefully you will follow them and they will really have the leadership. And if you're able to do that, I think then you're a good leader.
So that really stopped me, Pam, because that's to be able to let go of rather than to maintain a power structure underneath you. You know, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's what you just told me, that you have the ability to let go.
Well, that's also the only way that the people that work with you are able to, you know, go on and move on. If you are constantly afraid and insecure of, you know, of your job, then you'll always be afraid to let someone learn what you're doing. And I'm not afraid to let anyone learn what I'm doing. Luckily, when I was learning, the person I learned from wasn't afraid. And I learned from a woman, which was kind of interesting. And I think women are more able, interestingly enough, to do that than men are. Because I think women also sit there and say, well, this is my whole life. I have other things in my life. And they're able to do that. And men aren't able to do that. They're a little more insecure, and you have to be more secure to allow that to happen.
That's what we were talking about earlier. I think you just answered my question, you know, 25 minutes after I asked it, on why I relate differently to men and women. I think that's it. It's because I relate to a real secure place within myself when I'm at my best. I'm very secure within who I am, and I don't deal on. I'm very happy, and it comes across, and people like me. And when I don't, I lose all that. It's like the magic stops. Do you believe in magic?
Sure.
All right. All
Sure.
right. Tell me an instant where magic has been in your life, where you felt magic. I mean, the Henry Winkler one obviously was an instance of magic.
Well, I think Cheryl Ladd, in terms of my work, was, because that was hard. That was hard. Farrah Fawcett was important, and she was big, and it was a hard act to follow. And I think that was magic, that Cheryl was able to go in there and just, nobody really noticed, and she emerged
just emerged right through, huh?
It was really,